Hi, I'm Glenn Rogers, and this is Biblical Insights. In our video today, we're going to be talking about three big questions, three really important questions. And so I titled the video, Three Big Questions. What are those questions, and why are they so important? Well, I think when you hear the questions, you'll understand why they're important. The first question is, where did I come from? The second question is, why am I here? And the third question is, where am I going? Now, if you haven't asked yourself those questions yet, you need to begin to seriously think about those questions. If you have asked yourself those questions, then the answers that you came up with, if you came up with any, are extremely important questions. And I would suggest that you need to continue to think about them. And so what we're going to do today is take a few moments to look at each of those questions and to answer each of those questions. And then I'd like to challenge you basically to compare your answers to the ones that I'm going to give you and see which answer makes most sense to you. And then most importantly, see what you should do in life based upon how you answer those three questions. So let's start with the first one. Where did I come from? There are a couple of possibilities. If you are simply a biological organism, which some people claim, there are people out there called materialist, and they believe that only physical matter exists, just physical stuff, things made of subatomic particles and atoms and molecules and things like that. And, you put it in a big petri dish and, mix it all up together, and you get different forms that can include biological organisms, but still basically you just have physical stuff. That's all there is. And if you believe that, then you're just a biological organism. You're a body controlled by a brain, and you just came into existence based upon physical processes. When your parents reproduced, you came into being at some point along the way, and you will live for a while, and you will die, and then you will cease to exist. Okay? So if that's what you believe, then the answer to the question, where did I come from, is you came from your parents when they reproduced, and there wasn't anything else involved, and when you die, you will cease to exist. Okay, that's the first question and the third question, because if you're just a physical organism, a body controlled by a brain, then where you're going is into the grave. That's all. You're just going to die, and then you see your body, rots, and you cease to exist. All right. So the middle question, why am I here, then for those people is just to do whatever I want to do. And mostly I want to be happy. I want to have fun. Okay. I don't think that's a very good way to answer those questions. It doesn't provide anything for life that's meaningful in any way. And there's no actual evidence of any of that. There just isn't any. People like to believe that this is, very scientific and very philosophical and everything. We're just a physical organism controlled by a brain, and we live for a while, and we do whatever makes us happy, and then we die and we cease to exist. Well, that's really sad. That's just really, really sad and pathetic. And if that's what you believe, I would like to encourage you to think more broadly and to be more open to other ideas. And I want to give you some other ideas in this video to think about. There's another video out there that we did called Does God Exist? You ought to watch that video because in there we provide arguments that demonstrate that yes, God does exist. We also did a video called Is There an Afterlife? And the answer is yes, you bet there is. There is an afterlife. So this video, maybe we'll kind of tie all that together a little bit. But let's start with this first question. Where did I come from? When your parents reproduced, your physical body was conceived, um, with the coming together of an egg and a sperm from your mother and your father, and your physical body was conceived. At the same time, God was creating a mind, or a soul or a spirit, whatever you want to call it. I like to call it mind. You can call it something else. You call it soul or spirit, whichever. In the ancient world, ancient uh, Greek, the Greece, the philosophers called it soul. They talked about the immortality of the soul. In the Bible, it uses the word soul and spirit kind of in an interchangeable way. So it doesn't matter what you call it. I call it mind. But your parents created your body. God created your mind, and that's the real you, isn't it? That's the person who thinks and who wills and who weighs alternatives and who decides and makes choices and acts and does things. Okay, and you do things by means of your physical body, but it's the real you, the internal you, the mental you, the thinking you, that is the real you. And so, where did I come from? Well, ultimately, you came from God. The Bible talks about the fact that God created humans in His image. And I think there's a collaborative process that goes on between a man and a woman when they reproduce and they create the physical person, the baby. But that baby, the physical body, is infused then with a mind or a soul or a spirit, and that's the real person. It lives in the body, in the physical body, and that physical body grows and develops and becomes mature, and for many, many years can do lots of really amazing things. But then it starts to get old, it starts to run down, and eventually we die. Some after only a few years, some after a long, long time, 80, 90, 100 years sometimes, man. But where you came from, ultimately, the real you, is from God. You came from God. And you're going to live forever. The mind doesn't get old and die. The mind doesn't get sick. The brain can get sick. The brain doesn't function very well. The brain stops remembering, it can't make connections, and we call brain diseases dementia or Alzheimer's or different things like that. If the chemicals are not being produced properly and managed properly, like there's not enough serotonin being made by the brain and distributed properly, then the person may become depressed. If there's too much dopamine, then other things happen that are unpleasant. The brain can get sick, but the mind is an immaterial entity. It doesn't get sick. It doesn't get old. It doesn't die. Once God creates you, you will live forever. Now, there are different phases of life, and you won't always exist as a physical being in a physical body in this physical world. That's certainly true. But you, the self, the individual person that is you, will always exist. The question is whether you exist in a relationship with God or out of relationship with God. That's the question. But where did I come from? The answer is you came from God. Number two, why am I here? Well, people come up with all sorts of different answers to that. The other day I was looking through something on I think it was on Twitter, and somebody had posted a thing from the Dalai Lama that says the purpose of life is happiness. Well, I don't think so, but that's what he said. Wasn't the first guy who said that's not original with him. I doubt you could find anything original from him. You can go all the way back to ancient Greece, where the philosophers thought about the purpose of life, and one of the things they said was, the purpose of life is happiness. But they didn't mean the same thing that most people think of today. They had a word was eudaimonia, and it's often translated happiness, but that's not a good translation for a contemporary Western mind, because we think happiness is something very different than what they thought. A better word to translate eudaimonia is either thriving or flourishing. And what they meant when they said, well, the purpose of life is eudaimonia, they didn't mean happiness in the sense that we mean it. For us, happiness is, if we're hi, sorry, we had a little bit of a glitch there. I apologize. What I was saying is, if we're a student, we're happy if we get a good grade on a test. If we're an employee, we're happy if we get a promotion or a raise. We pay our car off, we're happy. We go on a nice vacation, we're happy. Lots of different things make us happy, and lots of things make us unhappy. If I didn't get an A on the test, I'm not happy. If I didn't get a raise, I'm not happy. If I didn't get a promotion, I'm not happy. If I have to go out and mow the lawn and it's too hot, I'm not happy. There's all sorts of things that impact our happiness or unhappiness. And what happens is we're happy, and then we're not happy, and then we're happy, and then we're not happy, and we're happy, and then we're not happy. And emotionally we go up and down with happy and not happy. Okay, that's not what the Greeks meant when they talked about the goal of life was to be happy. They understood the ups and downs of life. But what they were meaning was that a person is doing well in life overall. A person is thriving. A person is flourishing. Things are going okay. And even if you're having one of those days where you're not happy, that's irrelevant. You're still doing well. You're still thriving. You're still flourishing. And so when they said, the purpose of life is eudaimonia, they didn't mean the same thing as Epicurus meant, for instance, when he said, the purpose of life is to be happy, to enjoy, to experience pleasure. He meant something a little different. And the Dalai Lama means something a little different. So, is happiness really the purpose of life? Or are we really to live our lives in the pursuit of being happy? Well, that's really not possible. Nobody's happy all the time. Okay, there are ups and there are downs, and there are things that make us unhappy, and that really isn't the purpose of life. Life is more important than whether or not we're happy all the time. Nobody's going to be happy all the time. If that's the purpose of life, then life is extremely disappointing, and in many respects, it is in fact pointless. The purpose of life is something much bigger than that. The purpose of life is for us to grow and to mature and develop and become the best person we can be, the best version of ourselves. See, that's the real purpose of life. And in the process of that, we come to know God, and we have a relationship with God. God didn't create the world and human beings just so he could then ignore us and we could ignore him and go about our business and do whatever we want and become whatever we want, separate and apart from the concepts of good and evil and right and wrong and ideas that we value. God is a part of all of that, and coming to know God, to acknowledge him and to learn about him, and to allow him to help us understand the really important things in life, to help us become the better version of ourselves, to become good people, compassionate people, caring people, people who help others, okay? People who are patient, merciful, forgiving, to become the very best people that we can be, the best version of ourselves. You see, God can help us with that, and that's what he's doing. Because life, once we begin to exist, we will always exist. Life goes on. Now, this physical world is just one part of our existence. It's not the only part, and it's not the most important part. It's just the part we're living in now. Think of life this way. Think of different phases of your life and transitions that occur in your life. When you are conceived, we're going to call that phase one. Okay, you're conceived physically. The egg and the sperm come together. A body, the little cells are created, and the body begins to develop. God infuses a mind with that body, and you begin to grow, and you develop in your mother's womb for 9 months. Okay, that's phase one of your life. And then you're born, and everybody looks forward to the time you're going to be born. And many times people think this is the beginning of life. You're born, and now you begin to live. But you've already lived for 9 months in phase one of your life, growing and developing so that you can be ready to be born. And that is a transition into the next phase of your life. So conception to birth is phase one, and then you have transition one. You are born, and you're transitioned into the second phase of your existence, and that existence, living in this body in this world, lasts typically 70 or 80 or 90 years. Okay, and you have all kinds of experiences, and you grow from a newborn baby into a full-grown person, and the newborn baby can do nothing. It just lays there and moves its arms and kicks its legs and screams when it's hungry and whatever. And over the years, you grow into a mature, competent being who can do all sorts of things. But what's really going on during that phase is you are continuing to grow and develop in phase two of your existence, when you're getting ready to be transitioned again into the next phase, phase three of your existence. You see, we don't normally think of life like that. We think of birth and death, and in between there's life, and birth is the beginning and death is the end. No. That's not right. That's not the way to think of it. Birth isn't the beginning. Birth is a transition. And death isn't the end. Death is another transition. And in between, you're growing and developing and learning and getting ready for that transition, just as when you were in the womb, you were growing and developing and getting ready for that first transition that we often call birth. And the second transition that we often call death is very much like another birth. It's a transition into another phase of life. The point of life is to learn and grow and develop and be ready for that transition. And part of that is to get to know God and let God help you develop so that you're ready for that transition and for whatever is over there on that other side. So that's why you're here, to learn and grow and develop and prepare for that transition to the next phase of life. Where'd you come from? You came from God. Why are you here? To learn, to grow, to develop, and to get ready to be transitioned to the next phase of life. And where am I going? Well, that's number three. You're going into another phase of life. Now, if you follow what the Bible says, then that phase involves a resurrection from the dead and a new immortal body. I start to say physical body. It's not a physical body. It's an immortal body, a body that will not die, will not get sick, will not get old, will not wear out. You won't have arthritis. You won't have headaches. You won't be crippled. You won't be slow. You all the things that can go wrong with the physical body, none of that will be a factor when you get your immortal body at the resurrection. And what are we going to do on the other side? Well, I don't really know. There are some images in the Bible, specifically in the book of Revelation, where all people are together in a big group, and they're all in heaven and they're singing praises to God. And some people think, well, that's it. That's what we're going to do. I tend to think that's not what we're going to do. I mean, God is worthy of our praise, and there will probably be some of that. But I really don't think God went to all this trouble to create the world, create the universe, create the world and create us and do all this stuff and move us through life and transition us and just so that we can get to heaven, everybody stand around and sing for the rest of eternity. That doesn't make any sense. That's not a good idea. I don't think God would do that sort of thing. There's going to be work for us to do. There's going to be challenges for us to overcome, just like there are here, where we will continue to learn and to grow and to develop and to become strong and to become all we can be as a person who was created in the image of God. I mean, think about what that means, to be created in the image of God. I'm like God. Well, right now I don't feel very God-like. I mean, I'm a limited human being. I have all kinds of challenges and frailties. There's so many things I can't do, and I don't feel much like God, whatever it means to be created in the image of God. I'm somehow like God, but I don't feel like it. Yeah, well, feelings can be deceptive, can't they? Little children, when they're just born, they don't feel much like a mature, capable adult. Okay, but one day they will be. Okay, so you're a child of God, created in God's image, and if you have a relationship with God, He helps you grow and learn and develop and become what you can be. Well, why would we think that would all end when this physical phase of life ends and we're transitioned into the next phase? Why would we think there won't be any more growth and the development and all of those sorts of things? Of course there will be. Okay? Do I know exactly what it will be and how it will be and what? No, I have no idea. I just know that there will be more challenges and more growth and more development, and that we're not just going to stand around for eternity and sing songs. That would be a waste of a lot of time and effort on God's part. So those are three important questions. Where did I come from? Why am I here? Where am I going? You need to think about those things. But even more important than the answers you come up with for those things are the specific concerns of whether or not you enjoy a relationship with God, whether or not you've accepted His offer of grace and mercy, and whether or not you've been saved and live now in a relationship with God so that you can enjoy God and so that He can help you and be with you and so that you can become the very best version of yourself that you can be. So that's what's really most important about asking those questions. It helps you focus on the most important thing. Answering those questions helps you focus on who you are in relationship to God. Now, if you don't believe in God, then none of this matters. And this is all just a colossal waste of time, isn't it? But if you're listening to this, you probably suspect that God does exist and that you're somehow connected with Him and that maybe you want to be more connected and have a better relationship. Well, you can do that. You need to spend time in prayer. You need to spend time reading the Bible. You need to go to church. You need to find a group of Christians who can help you in studying and coming to know God. Those are my thoughts for today. I hope you find them helpful, interesting maybe. You don't necessarily have to agree with me, but you do need to think about these things. And so I'll leave you with the same thoughts that I do each time. Okay? Read your Bible, pray, go to church, and may God bless.